Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today we're going to tackle a question that feels, well, increasingly relevant. How does a country like Israel, relatively small geographically, how does it actually manage to defend itself against just this constant threat? We're talking rockets, missiles, drones, sometimes from multiple places at once. So our mission today is really to unpack this, to look at Israel's missile defense system.
Yeah.
It's complex, it's multi-layered. People sometimes call it a digital iron wall. We want to see what the pieces are, how they fit together, and why it's actually pretty significant on a global scale. Let's get into it. So when you start looking at how Israel handles defense, this idea of layers keeps coming up. It's not just one single magic bullet, right? It's more like an overlapping shield.
Exactly. Think of it like different nets stacked on top of each other. Each one is designed for a different kind of threat.
Different sizes, different speeds.
Precisely. Different altitudes, different ranges. The strategic thinking is that no single system could possibly handle everything that might get thrown at you in modern conflict. So by layering these defenses, you dramatically increase the chances of stopping something. If one layer misses, maybe the next one catches it.
Right. It's about redundancy, creating fail-safes.
Absolutely. It aims for comprehensive coverage, from, say, a short-range mortar fired just across the border, all the way up to a ballistic missile coming from much further away.
Okay, let's break down those layers then. The one we probably hear about most often is Iron Dome. It's always in the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
What's the story there? We hear this figure like 90% success rate. What does that actually mean on the ground?
Yeah, Iron Dome is definitely the first line, the initial interceptor. It's specifically built for the short-range stuff, rockets, artillery shells, mortars. Think threats coming from places like Gaza, Hamas, or from southern Lebanon, maybe Hezbollah. And that 90% figure, it's pretty remarkable. It reflects its ability to not just see incoming rockets, but to figure out which ones are actually heading towards populated areas.
So it doesn't just fire at everything.
Exactly. It's smart. It calculates the trajectory. If a rocket's going to land in an empty field, it generally ignores it, saves those interceptors, the Tamir missiles, for the real threats.
That makes sense. And the Tamir missiles themselves?
They're agile, highly maneuverable, designed specifically to hit these relatively small, fast-moving targets in midair. It uses advanced radar to track, then guides the Tamir to intercept. It really has, changed the dynamic for adversaries using those kinds of attacks. Makes it much harder to overwhelm defenses or terrorize civilian areas effectively.
Okay, so Iron Dome handles the short-range, sort of high-volume threats. But what happens when you're dealing with something bigger? A longer-range missile, maybe more sophisticated.
Right. That's where the next layer comes in. That's David's Sling.
David's Sling. Okay, middle tier.
Exactly. It's designed to fill that gap between Iron Dome and the really high-altitude stuff. We're talking medium to long-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, things that might be coming from further afield, maybe Syria, maybe even Iran. These are often faster, potentially carrying larger warheads. David's Sling is built for those.
So it can handle threats that are just too fast or too high for Iron Dome.
Precisely. It engages threats at higher altitudes and speeds. Its first operational interception, I believe, was back in 2018. So it's proven its capability against those more challenging targets.
Okay, so Iron Dome, David's Sling.
Yeah.
That takes us up to the highest layer, the Arrow system.
That's right. The Arrow system, developed in close partnership with the United States. This is the top tier, really.
And has different versions, Arrow 2 and Arrow 3.
Yes. Arrow 2 handles long-range threats, ballistic missiles, mostly within the atmosphere. But Arrow 3, that's a whole different level.
How so?
Arrow 3 is designed for exospheric interception.
Exo what?
Exospheric, outside the Earth's atmosphere. It can literally intercept ballistic missiles in space.
Wow.
Seriously.
Seriously. Before they even begin their final descent towards the target, this is cutting-edge stuff. It minimizes the risk from debris or even the warhead itself over friendly territory.
So it takes out the threat before it's even properly re-entered.
That's the idea. It became operational around 2017, and I think it was in 2023 it had a successful intercept high over the Red Sea. It demonstrates its capability against the kind of long-range ballistic missiles that are a major concern, like, say, Iran's Shahab-3 type missiles. Big strategic threats.
Incredible technology across all these layers. But knowing Israel, they're probably not stopping there. What's on the horizon?
You're right, they're not. The next big development everyone's watching is called Iron Beam.
Iron Beam. Sounds like something out of sci-fi.
It kind of is. It's a laser-based system. Directed energy.
So instead of firing a missile, It fires a laser.
Spaghetti, yes.
Mm.
It uses a high-energy laser to, well, essentially burn incoming threats right out of the sky. Drones, rockets, mortars.
What's the advantage there? Why lasers? Cost. Think about it. We just talked about how expensive interceptor missiles are. Iron Dome, David's Sling, Arrow. They cost thousands, even millions per shot.
Right.
A laser shot. The cost per engagement is potentially tiny in comparison, maybe just a few dollars worth of electricity.
Okay, that's a huge difference, especially if you're facing lots of cheap threats, like drone swarms or constant rocket fire.
Exactly. That's the potential game changer. Iron Beam could make defending against those kinds of saturation attacks economically sustainable in a way missile interceptors maybe aren't long term.
When might we see this actually deployed?
They're projecting it could be operational within the next few years. It won't replace missiles entirely. Missiles are still needed for certain types of targets, but it could fundamentally shift how you handle lower-tier threats.
The cost point is crucial, though. You mentioned the price of interceptors. These systems, overall, must represent a massive financial commitment.
Oh, absolutely massive. It's staggering, really.
Can you give us a sense of the scale?
Well, like you mentioned, a single Tamir interceptor for Iron Dome, estimates are up to, say, 50,000 US dollars. Maybe a bit less, maybe more, depending on the version.
$50,000 per shot.
Per shot. And then you look at something like Arrow 3, you're talking upwards of $2 million. Maybe more. Per interceptor.
$2 million?
Yeah. So you deploy these systems, you use them in conflicts. The costs add up incredibly quickly. They are extremely effective. They save lives, protect cities, but they are unbelievably expensive.
Which must be why the support from the U.S. is so often mentioned.
It's absolutely crucial. Both the technical cooperation, particularly on systems like Arrow, and the significant financial aid have been essential to building and maintaining this whole multi-layered shield. It likely wouldn't exist at this scale without that partnership.
So, okay, it's incredibly advanced, incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Why should someone outside the region, why should, the rest of the world care about Israel's missile defense?
That's a really important question. I think there are a few key reasons. First, these aren't theoretical systems sitting in a lab or only used on test ranges. They are battle-tested, constantly. In real high-pressure conflict scenarios, there's almost no other country that has that kind of real-world operational data on advanced missile defense.
So they're proven in a way others aren't.
Right. Their effectiveness isn't just a simulation. And because missile and drone technology is spreading, proliferating around the world, other countries are facing or will face similar threats. So they look at Israel as a model, what works, what doesn't.
So other nations are interested in this tech.
Definitely. The U.S. is a partner, of course. But countries like Germany, India, others, they're looking very cautiously, either interested in purchasing systems like Iron Dome or Arrow, or partnering on developing similar capabilities. Israel's system, because it's constantly adapting to new threats, essentially serves as a real-time laboratory for modern air and missile defense. It shows what's possible and, frankly, what might be necessary in 21st century warfare.
A real-time model for defense in a changing world.
Exactly. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Israel's constant push, this relentless innovation in missile defense, it's born out of necessity, out of its specific geopolitical reality. But it really forces us to think differently about warfare itself. For centuries, conflict was primarily about projecting power outwards. Now, increasingly, victory might depend just as much, maybe even more, on your ability to intercept power coming inwards, to defend effectively. So what does that shift mean for global security, for how nations plan their defense, how they allocate resources? That evolving dynamic, the offense-defense balance, that's something we'll all be grappling with moving forward.